Hey, what's up guys? Welcome to the channel. UFC 281 is almost here, and this is one of the most anticipated fight cards of the entire year, and it is stacked from top to bottom with incredible fights. And headlining the prelims, we have Brad Riddell versus Renato Moicano, and this is going to be my full breakdown and prediction for this fight. And this is an amazing fight, but the entire card is just stacked with incredible fights. All the prediction videos I already have done and out on the channel, I will link down in the description, but I have a bunch more UFC 281 prediction videos coming, including Israel Adesanya versus Alex Pereira, so make sure you subscribe to the channel and turn on notifications. So this lightweight fight between Brad Riddell and Renato Moicano is very important for both guys, and it's a very fan-friendly stylistic matchup. Brad Riddell at one point in time was ranked number 12 in the lightweight division, and the lightweight division is just so stacked, and now he's coming off a couple losses, and he's no longer ranked even in the top 15. If he wants to bounce back and become that lightweight contender a lot of people thought he could be at one point in time, he can't go on a 3-fight losing streak. And for Renato Moicano, a similar situation for him. He used to fight at 145 pounds. Now, he's up at 55, had a little bit of success. Then his last fight, he lost against Rafael dos Anjos, which we'll talk about here in a second. And for him, if he loses to Brad Riddell, it's just, this fight is so important for both guys because another loss here for either guy, you're not going to be able to, just rebuild yourself in a division as stacked as the lightweight division. It is an absolute shark tank. There is plenty of guys outside of the top 15 who were very tough, even elite fighters who aren't even in the top 15. So both of these guys desperately need a win. I won't say, their career is over with a loss here because they're still, neither one of these guys are particularly old. So I think they could still kind of climb back, but it's going to be very difficult when you have guys like Terrence McKinney hanging out in the wings in the lightweight division, not even ranked in the top 15. But I'm looking forward to this fight. It's a very highly skilled fight. I believe in any other division, these guys will be ranked in the top 15. But lightweight, similar to bantamweight, is just stacked from top to bottom. So it's just an incredible division. But this is a very high-level fight. And I think no matter who wins this fight, it will be a very exciting fight. So if you look at the tail of the tape for this fight, Brad Riddell is 10-3. Renato Moicano is 16-5-1. Neither guy is ranked. Brad Riddell is 31. Renato Moicano is 33. Riddell is 5'7". Moicano is 5'11". Riddell has a 71-inch reach, and Moicano has a 72-inch reach. So a 4-inch height advantage and a 1-inch reach advantage for Renato Moicano. You look at Moicano, he has 16 pro MMA wins. Of those 16 wins, he has 9 by submission and 7 by decision. Of those 5 losses, he's lost 3 times by knockout or TKO, once by submission, and once by decision. He comes into this fight on a 1-fight losing streak. And, I really hate this fight at UFC 272. And I'm going to talk about it quite a bit in this video because this was a massive mismanagement. I don't know if it's by Renato Moicano's agent. The UFC should be held culpable for this. Mark Goddard should be held culpable for this. So what happened is Rafael dos Anjos was supposed to fight Rafael Fiziev. And it was 2 weeks before UFC 272. The fight got canceled. I think Fiziev had visa issues. It got moved to 272 as the co-main event, which 272 was a terrible fight card, terrible pay-per-view at the time, and they needed this. Fiziev ends up pulling out. I think he got sick or something. I can't remember. Well, because it was originally a main event, when it got moved to 272, it stayed 5 rounds. Well, when Moicano decided to step in on short notice, the UFC and I guess Moicano's team and Rafael dos Anjos decided to keep it 5 rounds. How is that fair for a guy coming in on short notice? And Moicano looked okay in the beginning of the first round, but as the fight went on, he just started getting beat up, out-grappled, ground and pounded. In the third round, he really got dominated in the third round. He was starting to get busted up. And then the fourth round, he really got bludgeoned badly, and his eye was all swollen up. And they had the doctor come look at it, and Mark Goddard was looking at it, and the doctor said, it's reasonable to stop this fight, but Mark Goddard told Moicano, you have 30 seconds to turn this around or I'm stopping it. And then the 5th round was mildly competitive, ironically enough. Dos Anjos still won the 5th round, but it was mildly competitive. And I just think this entire fight and those extra 2 rounds were completely unnecessary. Rafael Dos Anjos won the first 3 rounds. And this is a guy that came in on short notice. And the only reason I think the 5th round was competitive is because Dos Anjos took it easy on him. I honestly believe Dos Anjos took the foot off the gas because he felt bad for him. And what is up with Mark Goddard saying, turn it around in 30 seconds or I'm stopping it? That's not how the fights work. That's not how the rules work. You can't just say that. He's either cleared to fight or he's not cleared to fight. He had an eye issue. You should have just stopped the fight. He had already taken so much accumulated damage. But it was just disturbing. And I think this is a fight and this is a loss that could take years off of Moicano's career. He got out-grappled in this fight. He ate big shots in this fight standing. And, he took it on short notice, so what can you really say? But it's still detrimental to his career, and that was his last fight. The fight before that, he beat Alexander Hernandez via submission. I think Hernandez shot in on a takedown, got reversed, and then ended up in the rear naked choke. I think Moicano ended up on his back getting the rear naked choke. Before that, another rear naked choke win over Jai Herbert. Before that, a loss to Rafael Fiziev. This was when Rafael Fiziev was coming up the ranks. Fiziev just absolutely decimated Renato Moicano. Finished him brutally in the first round. And Fiziev is an opponent in common with Brad Riddell. And then you start getting back, early 2020. I'm not going to talk too much about these fights. 2 things I want to point out about Moicano's resume. Every time he has a massive step up in competition, he ends up losing. Brian Ortega back in 2017. Jose Aldo in 2019. Chan Sung Jung in 2019. Rafael Fiziev in 2020. I know Fiziev was kind of an up-and-coming guy, but we see how good he is now. And then Rafael Dos Anjos at UFC 272. But what can you really say about that? The other thing I want to point out is Moicano, and this actually shocked me. Moicano has 0 wins by knockout. I thought that was super interesting. So if you look at Brad Riddell, it's crazy. He started his career. He only had 1 loss from 2013 all the way up until December of 2021. And his first MMA loss was back in July of 2018. Of his 10 pro MMA wins, he has 5 wins by knockout, 5 wins by decision. Of his 3 losses, once by knockout, twice by submission. He's lost his last 2 fights. His last fight was against Jalen Turner at UFC 276. Jalen Turner, another absolute killer within the lightweight division, went out there, clipped Riddell with a big shot. Riddell ended up kind of shooting in on a takedown, giving up his neck, and Jalen Turner submitted him within the first minute of the first round. Impressive performance by Jalen Turner. But there's not really much you can take away from that fight outside of Jalen Turner just looked like an absolute savage. Fight before that, he fought Rafael Fiziev, and this was a very competitive fight. First 2 rounds were very close. I gave him to Fiziev. I thought he landed the harder shots, but it was debatable. And then in the 3rd round, as Riddell is circling out, because Fiziev is kind of pressing forward, landing nasty shots, Riddell walks into a spinning heel kick, and basically he's out cold but still standing on his feet. Ref jumps in, ends up being a 3rd round TKO for Rafael Fiziev. Before that was a fight against Drew Dober, which at this time was the biggest step up in competition. This was a very close fight. People forget how good this fight was. Both guys were rocking each other multiple times. But in this fight, I feel like Riddell, kind of won this fight with his grappling, even though there wasn't a lot of grappling in this fight. It was so close, and Riddell used those clinch positions and used those couple takedowns and a little bit of control on the ground and kind of edged out rounds. And then in the 3rd round, he rocked Drew Dober badly, and I think that's really what sealed him the fight. I think it was a 29-28 with Drew Dober winning the first round, if I'm not mistaken. And outside of that, not the greatest resume in general. After Drew Dober and then Rafael Fiziev and Jalen Turner, those are his 3 best opponents. And he lost to 2 of them. So it's kind of one of those things where, again, gets a step up in competition and ends up losing. And in both those fights, he gets finished. But, Brad Riddell has looked very good, in his UFC career. And even in the fight against Rafael Fiziev, I believed he looked a lot better than I thought he would fare against Rafael Fiziev. But I am very high on Rafael Fiziev. So when I look at this fight, I see 2 guys who are very well-rounded. I feel like both guys have a good skill set. I don't feel like they're just terrible anywhere. I think both guys have good grappling. Both guys have good jiu-jitsu. Both guys have good striking. I think Brad Riddell has the power advantage. But, it's not like Brad Riddell is just nuking guys out dead at all. So it's kind of hard to, I think this is one of those fights where it's kind of hard to pin down a method of victory. But if I had to say for Brad Riddell, I think his most likely path to victory, I think he's more likely than Moicano, not his most likely path to victory. I think he's more likely than Moicano to get a TKO or KO. I also think Brad Riddell could win via decision. I don't think Brad Riddell is going to submit Renato Moicano. And for Moicano, I don't see him getting a KO or TKO. I think if he wins this fight, he wins it by submission or decision. So for my official prediction for this fight, I am going to go Brad Riddell via decision. I just think, he's younger. I think he's faster. I think he has heavier hands. He doesn't have like a massive reach disadvantage. I think he has the grappling advantage as far as like takedowns in wrestling. And it's not like Moicano is like a Brian Ortega or Charles Oliveira, where if you take him down, he's definitely going to submit you. So I think Brad Riddell, he showed in that Rafael Fiziev fight, even though he lost, Fiziev is one of the best strikers in the UFC, in my opinion. And he hung in there with Rafael Fiziev, landed nasty body kicks, landed some good punches, even bloodied up Rafael Fiziev a little bit. I just think Moicano is just not super technical in the feet. And I think Riddell is going to land some good shots. And I think he's going to bust Renato Moicano up. I think it's going to be a competitive fight. But I think, the second and third round, I think there's going to be clearer rounds for Riddell. I just think he's going to land more shots, land more damaging shots. And also, I can't discount the X factor that Moicano is coming off that, what I call a career-altering beating from Rafael dos Anjos. I just can't discount that. Who knows, Moicano could be a shell of his former self. And I really do believe Brad Riddell is a top guy in the lightweight division, even though he's not technically ranked. It just shows how good the division is. So I think Brad Riddell, he'll mix in some takedowns. He might not be able to control Moicano on the ground for long, but he'll get those, clinch positions and some knees up against the fence. I think he'll get a takedown or two throughout this fight, maybe control Moicano for 30 seconds before Moicano scrambles back to his feet. And I think he'll just land the harder shots. And I think, Brad Riddell is going to win a very competitive, but close, but not necessarily super close, 30-27 decision. I think Brad Riddell gets it done. If Moicano wins the round, I think he'll probably win the first round. But after that, I think Brad Riddell will get some reads. He'll start landing some good leg kicks. He'll start landing some good body kicks. I think he'll start landing some heavy punches, maybe bust up the nose of Renato Moicano. And I really think the key to this fight is going to be a combination of some heavy punches from Brad Riddell and also some of that control time and ground and pound and knees in the clinch. Just when we have a kind of close competitive round, he's going to be able to get those positions and just edge out that round. So I got Brad Riddell via decision. Let me know what you guys think down in the comments. Don't forget to like the video, and thank you so much for watching.